Record. Right, so welcome to today's Creative Ways to Rewire Your Brain session. And what we are going to talk about today is what are habits. And I think habits are these wonderful little creatures. So they are our energy save mode autopilots, the way I would describe it. But what I've done, I've also looked up a little bit more scientific way of defining what habits are and the definition of habits. So according to Wikipedia, habits are an acquired behavior pattern regularly followed until it has become almost involuntary. So what habits are doing is habits are saving us energy. And why they are doing so is to make sure that, for example, that every time you make a tea, you don't have to think through the steps of making a tea. So to give you a good, comparison of why habits are saving us energy is probably the best way if you guys have learned how to drive a car. Probably the first time that you have you have learned how to put the car into reverse gear and park between two cars in a parking lot. It might have required an effort. It might have required you to know into which mirror to look. It took you, you had to remember step by step. How do you turn the wheel? How does it feel? How does the car feel? What is it that you need to be careful of? So it took you an enormous amount of effort and focus to be able to park the car. And now that you have, if you've learned how to drive the car and now that you have to do the same routine, it probably doesn't take you that much energy. It's because you have created a habit. You have wired your brain to create a habit. And what it does from a conscious incompetence where you know that you can't park a car, it moves you to a conscious competence when you know that you can park a car between two cars standing in a row. It will then slowly take you to the unconscious competence when you actually don't need to think about it. And this is exactly what's happening. Every time we create a habit, every time we form a habit, what is happening in our brains and in our body, we learn something, and we learn through the learning stages of being consciously incompetent in a habit, in a creation of a habit, to being consciously competent in the habit, and then being unconsciously competent in the habit. All in all, just to make sure that we save energy. So habits are good for us from one perspective. They are there to save energy, and they are there to create headspace. However, as both of you mentioned, you want to learn how to break a habit. You want to learn how to break the procrastination habit. This is something where our habits are starting to work against that. But before moving on, what is it that we can do about breaking those habits? Let's also understand how a habit is formed. So what are the three things that need to happen at the same time in order to form a habit? So a gentleman called Professor Fogg from Stanford University has defined the three things that need to happen at the same time in order for us in order for a habit to happen. Given a habit is a behavior, in order for a behavior to form, you need to have three things. You need to have a trigger, a cue. You need to have the ability to do a behavior, and you need to have the motivation to do the behavior. So to give you your example, when it's this cold outside, which is my trigger, it's a trigger for me to feel like I want a hot drink on the way to work. I typically don't. I'm not a hot drink carrier person, but when it's this cold outside, I've got a trigger, and then I've got the ability to walk into the coffee shop and buy myself the chai latte that I really like, because I have a motivation around it making me feel good about myself. at that very moment. It keeps me warm, it makes me warm. However, at the end of the day, is it a good habit? Not really. If you look at the amount of calories that are in a chai latte, but you know what? It's cold outside, so I'm gonna let myself go. So how can we change those habits? And what can stop us changing the habits? So let's start with the bad news. So there's a couple of bad news, but knowing what those bad news are makes life easier, because then you can work on them. So the bad news are that your brain is hardwired to resist the change. And this goes back to the point of habits are your energy saving autopilot. A habit is formed within 28 to 35 days. So it takes, if you want to create a habit, if you want to learn a behavior, it typically takes 28 to 35 days to form a habit. And the reason for that is to keep the homeostasis of your body. So no one would want to start training for a marathon by starting to run 49 miles straight. We wouldn't do that. We would just start one by one, slowly building the habit of running. However, if we would start straight away with a complete opposite habit of, we've had a sedentary lifestyle, we haven't moved at all, and if we all of a sudden ran 49 miles straight, then our body and our brain would say to us very, very quickly, stop. You are breaking the homeostasis, you are breaking me. And that's why it's so difficult to change a habit, because it is your brain that's hardwired to follow that neurological path. And because of that, you have to work and you have to be willing to put the effort into changing the habit, because your brain is working against you for a couple of days when you are learning a new habit. The second bad news is our cognitive load. So we can take 7 ± 2 things into our working memory at one time. And what does this mean? Well, what it means is, if you've got loads of things going on, if you need to create a project by tomorrow, if you need to take the kids to school, if you need to make sure you cook dinner and clean and make everyone happy, if you need to go to the bank, and everything is in your mind and everything is happening in your mind at the same time, so meaning that you can't exclude those thoughts that are jumping in with regards to that piece of information that you need to fulfill, and you are and you've got a text message and you've got a Facebook alert and you've got a new email popping up in your Outlook window. The bad news is that, again, to keep your body's balance, to keep your well-being, your brain can focus and can do 7 ± 2 things at the same time. So why is it bad news for habit change? Is you need to pick a good time. You need to make sure that when you decide to change a habit, because that requires a significant amount of energy from you, you need to make sure that you can dedicate one out of those 7 ± 2 to changing the habit. Otherwise, your brain just wouldn't be able to create those new neurological paths that are required for you to change the habit. And the third thing, and this is absolutely true to my situation at the moment, is willpower can be depleted. So why am I mentioning this? Because willpower is like a muscle. So if you battle through a whole month at work, when you need to deliver, when you need to pull together all your efforts to deliver something because you've got hard deadlines, because you are under-resourced, which when there's so many things happening, your willpower will be depleted. It's like a muscle. So it's again going back to the analogy that I use with running. If you are, you get tired, and your muscles, which is like your willpower muscle, will get tired, and the more decisions you need to make daily, the more fatigued it becomes. So again, making sure when you decide to break a habit, when you decide to break a habit of procrastination, when you decide to break a habit of walking into Nero and buying that chai latte on the way to work, make sure you are in the right place mentally, and make sure you are creating the space for the change mentally. And going back to the slide with trigger, motivation, and ability, is in order to change the habit, you need to make sure you change either of these three to change the behavior. So you either need to change the trigger that you have for that behavior to happen. You either have to change the ability for that behavior to happen, or you either need to change your motivation for that to happen. And this is where I would pose, and this is where I would call to action for you. Think about the thing that you want to change. Think about the habit that you want to change. And think about the triggers of that habit. And the motivation and the ability. And once you've got it, think about which of these three is the easiest for you to change. And once you've got it, then there's a couple of things that I would like you to consider. So before you change a habit, there's one key question to ask yourself, is how has the habit you want to change benefited you until now? Because there's no human habit that hasn't been formed for a very, very good reason. For me, drinking chai latte on the way to work, stopping at that Nero, that I'm spending that amount of money that I shouldn't be spending on the chai latte, the way it has benefited me is it has made me feel warm from the first perspective, but it also made me feel a little bit cared for. I felt like that, I'm benefiting myself with drinking that chai latte. But whatever habit you want to change, think about what were the benefits of that habit. What was the reason why you have created that habit? Because it enormously, when you've got it, when you've understood why you have created the habit, you are compassionate about yourself, and then it will be easier to work to change the habit. And then be honest with yourself. Do you really, really, really want to change this habit? In very, 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 very often, we are shooting ourselves. Very, very often, I have an instance. There's a lovely lady that I'm coaching, and she wants to lose weight. And when I've asked her why she wants to lose weight, is because she says, because I should. Because, the social expectation is for me to lose weight. But when I've asked her and we've walked around the whole topic of what habits are created, and she loves eating cakes. And the thing is, the whole eating the cake habit is actually benefiting her tremendously. And what's most, she's happy with her body. She's okay with the way she looks. She's okay. She's happy with the size of the shoes. She's happy with the size of the clothes she's wearing. But she's just shooting herself because of the media and the social media and everything else telling her how she should look like. But at the end of the day, she's happy with who she is, and the habit is tremendously benefiting her. It makes her happy, and it's an adventure for her when she can go and explore new different cakes, and can walk can even travel to different parts of the town just to taste a new cake. And I think the point when she realized that age, it's not her will to change this habit, and when she realized that her habit has tremendously benefited her, that moment in life had made her life so much easier. So again, when you are thinking about what is it that you'd like to change, make sure you are honest with yourself, and be clear of whether you really, really want to change the habit. And if you're all clear on this, so you know what are your triggers, you know what are your abilities, you know what are your motivation of this habit, you know how the habit has benefited you, and you are clear that this is really what you want to change, and you found yourself in a good place for the change, here's a couple of things you might want to try. This is my personal favorite, which is habit stacking. And the reason why it's my personal favorite, it's because it starts mini. It starts small. It starts with a small scale. So what is it? What does stacking habits mean? There's a really, really good book that you might want to read on the subject. It is written by S.J. Scott. I think it's £1 or something on Amazon.com. But practically what he is explaining is we've got small little habits every day. So again, giving you my example, my little habit in the morning is after I've washed my teeth, got out of bed, went to the bathroom, washed my teeth, the first thing that I would do is I would turn on the kettle to make sure that I make myself a tea. So, and that's habit one. And that, there's a trigger, which is, coming out of the bathroom, then I would go straight to the kettle, push the button of the kettle. Here's a habit. And then, once the kettle is boiling, then I'll make sure that I'll put away my laptop. There's habit two. And then I'll make sure that then I put in the tea bag into the mug, which is habit three. So if you want to start small, and if you would like to, for example, add the habit of meditation into your morning, you can start small. So if you wanted to change the habit of not meditating to meditating, then what you could do, and what I could do when it comes to habit stacking, I could come out of the bathroom, put the kettle on, and once I've put the kettle on, which is for the first habit, I could dedicate that time while the kettle is boiling is to sit down for 2 minutes and meditate for those 2 minutes. And for those 2 minutes, I've meditated and I started small. And then slowly, you can identify small little habits on top of which you can build something. It works perfectly the same way with, for example, push-ups. It works beautifully well with writing your day's schedule of all the things that you want to do. It writes perfectly well with prioritization of the things that you want to do. If it's the problem with procrastination, if it works perfectly well. It's like once this is done, and we are already talking about habit stacking, identifying that frog that we have to eat, that thing that we need to do, but we've been putting it away and away and away, but chunking it down to smaller little pieces and identifying that one thing that day that we have to do in order to, what Brian Tracy calls, what is the frog that you need to eat in order to move ahead with your life do something that you don't want to do, but you will do first thing in the morning, because you know that there's something that's not urgent but important for you to do. So this is practically what habit stacking is about. The other personal favorite of mine is vision boarding. And I found it really, really powerful. And I think it's been a little bit overused at one point in time, and like a little bit mystified. But power boards can be so simple. So, imagine your life when and how your life is after you've changed the habit that you want to change. Imagine the things that you have achieved by breaking the habit, and create a vision board around it. Create what is it that you're going to see, how is it that you are going to feel, and what is it that you are going to hear when you've changed the habit. And create a vision board around it. Create that future when you've cracked the habit, and then make sure you keep it inside. Because the key thing for anything, for any change, is the emotional connection. So our thinking is happening in our neocortex, which is the new part of our brain, which is something that it's not our primal brain. But in order to trigger action, it is important to connect with the primal brain. The primal brain is the flight or fight decision making brain. So in order for you to really take action, it is important for you to get that emotional connection, because the primal brain is where the emotions are formed at the end of the day. And once you are able to create the emotion, you can create yourself that emotion that you believe that this is what I want to create, and keep it inside, and then anchor this feeling. So whenever you look at this picture, you just remind yourself of, this is what I want to achieve. This is what's really important for me. Then it's very, very easy then to keep your motivation, which is one part of the of the three things that are required for a behavior, i.e. a habit, to be formed. Another of my big favorites. If you remember, I've talked about how habits are formed, and practically what habits are is like that's one neural path in your brain to make sure that you are saving energy. So every time you wash your teeth, you don't have to think through how you wash your teeth. You have your movements that use. However, if you want to trick your brain, if you want to trigger a quicker response to change, here's a very, very effective tool from neuro-linguistic programming that you could use. And that is, think about the thing that you want to achieve, and create an affirmation about it for yourself. Things like I am able to deliver the project by tomorrow afternoon. Positive. It is possible. It is personal to you. And have this affirmation going in your head, and you might even want to write it down on the mirror. You just might want to put it on a piece of paper and just put it in front of your mirror. But then the trick is to wash your teeth with the other hand. And then your brain will go like, there's something funny happening, because you've been using one neurological pathway to brush your teeth, but all of a sudden you are brushing your teeth with your other hand, which is not the used way for your brain, and you are saying something that you might not have believed. But what you are doing is, because you are triggering the change process with brushing your teeth with the other hand, you are actually starting to believe in that affirmation that you might not have thought was possible. because all you are doing is triggering change in your brain. So yeah, the affirmation that you would put, just make sure it's in present tense, it's positive, it's possible, and it's personal to you. Another version for the teeth brushing is doodling. So if you are the creative type, which I'm pretty sure some of you are, doodle with your wrong hand. Write down the affirmation with the wrong hand. So if you're right-handed, do it with the left. If you're left-handed, do it with the right. Create something, but again, trick your brain with doing it with the other hand. Almost last but not least, Kundalini yoga. Kundalini, if you do Google search into Kundalini yoga is all about the energy centers in your body. And one key energy centers in your body is the solar plexus chakra, which is the one around your navel. And if you search for exercises that are focusing on the solar plexus chakra, which, it might sound weird to you and you might be completely against it, but it's just worth a try. Practically, those exercises would be making your change process easier. So if you are about to change something that you might find difficult, you can work to those exercises that are helping change to be delivered. And an absolute must, I think, even if you are setting yourself up for change or not, binaural music. Amazing amount of effort has gone into composing music that is balancing the brain, that is calming the brain, and that is also triggering and helping change by making sure that you are in the best state of mind. Going back to the point of the cognitive load, and going back to the point of the willpower being depleted, binaural music can very, very quickly bring you to a state of very natural calmness, of the breath slowing down. It's almost as good. Well, actually, it can be used as a meditation / mindfulness tool. So if you are setting yourself up for a change, if you want to make sure that you do something and you like music, listening to binaural music would definitely be a big trigger and would help you getting to where you want to get to. So in summary, if you want to make a change one thing at a time. You really don't want to deplete your willpower, because then the reason being is that you will lose faith in yourself that you can do it, and you won't try it again. And believe me, everyone has everything that they require in themselves. It's making sure that we are focusing on the best timing and being compassionate with each other or with ourselves. Making sure you have a clear trigger for your habit change is absolutely crucial for you to gain to get the results that you want. But also going public and telling people whose opinion matters about your plan and by when you would like to achieve this is also very, very important. If you've ever read the works of Brené Brown, he is sharing in them that in order to be successful and in order to live wholeheartedly, we need to be resilient. And resilience, it doesn't mean being able to juggle one more thing at a time. But what resiliency is resiliency to shame. And resiliency to shame is built by sharing what you are going through with people that matter the most. Because if you are able to share what's going on for you, that hot flush of shame will happen to you less and less. And when when it happens less and less, that's when you become resilient to shame. When you become resilient to shame, that's when you will get more resilient to try new things. That's when you would be keen on starting that business you always wanted to start. So it's very, very important to go public and tell those who matter what is it that you are trying to change. And please, please allow yourself to fail and be compassionate to yourself. And prepare for those moments when you think you can fail. So if you should you want to lose weight, and you are the kind of person who loves cake, like the lady that I described, for her, my suggestion would have been is to prepare for the moment when she'll be passing a coffee shop with beautiful cakes in the window, and preparing for what is it that she's going to do in the situation. How else is she can she handle the situation, and how can she handle the situation should she fail? If you plan in advance for the opportunity to fail, it's very unlikely that you will actually fail, because you will have the option B of going down the route of the previous habit, which will be there, by the way. So in the moment, when we are building a new habit, the old habit doesn't go away. It's just the new habit becomes stronger, and you have the motivation to choose the new habit's neural pathway. But the old habit will be there. It will never go away. That neurological pathway has been built. What's the change is you are building a fork to a new one, and you are directing the traffic towards the new habit. And most importantly, celebrate your wins. It's so important to celebrate the wins. It's so forget, just move on. When we are, when we finally manage to achieve something, and celebrating a little wins. If you've managed to build in 2 minutes of meditation to your morning practice, celebrate it. If you've managed to build in prioritization of your work stack for 5 days in a row, celebrate it. These are all small little steps towards your goal, which I'm pretty sure you will all be amazingly good at achieving. So thank you for your time, and I would be really interested to hear of which things are you